Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, wherever we're hailing from. Welcome to our Picote webinar today, which is about our Express Coating System. So the Express Coating System was recently a finalist in the UK STT Awards. We didn't win. However, it was very nice to be shortlisted, and we'd like to show you the reasons why. This is a fantastic system for especially relevant, for example, in stack pipes inside buildings. And we're going to take you through the benefits of the system. We're going to do a demo. I say we, Dan's going to do the demo. I'm just going to watch on and enjoy. And we're going to talk about some of the recent jobs that have been happening with this around the world, and particularly in the UK over the last few weeks. So we've got our team in the UK standing by, which are UK Training Centre, which is located in Sandhurst in England. And we've got Dan Holmes there, our Senior Technical Trainer, who's just raring to go to show you all of this. We've also got our other Senior Technical Trainer there, Andy Kibblewhite, in the background. He'll also be talking to you throughout the webinar. Behind the scenes, we have got Steve Richardson, and we've got Richard Swan and Steph Richardson, who is our our marketing and communications manager. And she's also the lady who will be popping all the relevant information into the chat for you as we progress. If you do have any questions at any point, please feel free to use our Q&A function. We will get to this at the end of the demonstration. And the guys will be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. So I'm going to hand you over to Dan, who's going to tell you the benefits of the Express Coating System and where it fits into the market, and the benefits of using this system over, for example, our existing mini or maxi pump, and then take you through the demo. So Dan, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's start with some of the differences between the original system and this new Express system. On the original system, we would the resin came in cartridges, and we would mix the resin and then pump mixed resin through a delivery tube to the brushes. Okay, and on this system, we have raw resin in 2 tanks on the top here, which goes through this pump system and then through the hose reel, which is just here, and it is delivered to just before the brushes on here, and we use a mixing nozzle here. So we have raw resin coming, or 2-part raw coming into here, and then it's those 2 parts are mixed here, and we have mixed resin just really between from about here to just before the brushes, rather than the old system where we were pumping mixed resin for quite considerable distances. So what that actually does for us with this new system, it means that we don't have the wastage of delivery hose. So on this reel is 40 meters of hose, and so you can use all of that hose should you need to, and you are only ever mixing at the end on the mixing tip, which means that you don't have to wash these hoses out, because they're always loaded up with the 2 parts of the mixture of resin. So fine pump. What that means is, like I say, you get an awful lot less waste. It also means that we can supply the resin in larger containers, and it's also stored in these pots here. Okay, so that's probably the biggest single difference between the original system and the new system. That and this system. So these, as you can see here over the reel, we've got a jacket. It's like an F1 tire warmer, which wraps around the hoses, which keeps the resin warm. We've also got heating jackets down here on the actual pump itself. So what we're trying to do is keep the resin as warm as we possibly can. So even when we're transporting this, because this unit is battery powered, we can if it's an hour between your starting point and your site where you're going to be working, you could link this up in the back of the truck, and you can turn it on so that at least it's a bit warm by the time you actually get to site. And then you can plug it into a power supply like we have here, and you're continually warming the whole system up before you even start. So it's the first thing we do when we get to site is switch it on, connect it up, switch it on, or before we get to site, sorry, in the back of the truck, switch it on. Then when we get to site, it goes onto a power supply and then continues to keep warm whilst we're setting up the rest of the site. What that means for us is that we have resin delivered at the tip almost immediately at the right temperature. So one of the biggest single differences. The other thing with this particular system, unlike the original system, is that this resin goes off a lot quicker. The original system resin comes in the cartridges is around about a 4-hour cure time. You can reduce that by putting a blower on, and with this system it's around about an hour. Again, we can reduce that somewhat by putting a blower, warm air blower onto the pipe once it's gone on, so we can reduce that further still. If you're in a country which is like the UK, very cold in the winter, then you can put the blower on and you're going to reduce the curing time, or the curing time would be around about an hour and 15 because of the colder ambient temperature. So yeah, it's very different really from the original system. So the benefits are it's got 40 meters of cable, 40 meters of hoses. It's always full of resin or charged with resin, and you're only ever mixing the last 300 millimeters at the very end on the mixing nozzle itself. So yeah, the other thing is once it's set up and the hoses are inside the pipe, as soon as you press the start button, you've immediately got resin on tap. Okay. You can also control the amount of flow that you get because we have a speed control on it, so we can deliver more resin should we need it, or less, depending on the size of the pipe that we're working in. One full stroke will do around about 8 meters of 100 mil pipe. Give you a single coat, then you have to stop and draw this back up. But it's really not a problem because this pump rises up so quickly, or quicker than you would have thought. So it comes up quick enough, and then you've got instant resin yet again. So that's probably the single biggest difference, I think, between the original system and this one. Yeah, probably about that. The other thing that we found since we've been using it is we fitted these wheels to the units, which actually means it's quite easy to maneuver around the site. So we've used it on a couple of sites now. It's quite easy to get in and out of places. So yeah, it's maneuverable and a bit more efficient when it comes to the amount of resin that we're using. So because we're not mixing raw resin and then having to throw it away. So any other differences you can think of, Andy? No, that's about it. Okay. So the way that we've got it set up at the moment is we have the hoses coming off of the hose reel and coming up to the top of the tank. And what we've been doing is we obviously switch the machine on, we get it up to temperature, and then we've just been pumping the resin. So the pistons come down, and that forces the resin through the hoses and back around and into the tank. And we've done that a couple of times now, probably 2 or 3 times. And what that means for us is that we ensure that there's warm resin all the way through the system, so that when we actually come to use the system in the pipe, which is just over here, we know that we've got warm resin being delivered immediately to the brushes. Okay. So what we will do is we'll do a demonstration, and you'll be able to see what I can see because there'll be a big TV screen behind me. So what we'll do is we'll disconnect these two hoses here, and we will fit them to the mixing nozzle that I've already got on the back of the brushes here. And then we'll purge the system, as in we'll ensure that there's a decent mix before the brushes, and then we will put the brushes and all the hoses into the pipe and actually coat a bit of pipe. So, see how that goes. Now, oh, thank you. So, yeah, just in case I feeling a bit warm. So, as with any kind of resin, you've always got to have multiple gloves on. And I didn't do this before. So, make sure you could see what I was pointing at. So, just bear with me a moment. Stephen, are you going to pass me that bit of tissue paper? Thank you. Thank you, sir. Right, so black, and then the white. Okay, obviously we don't put them together or let them touch or let the components mix until we put them inside the mixing nozzle. And if you want to just take that over towards the camera a bit, and you can show everyone what we've just done. Great. So all we've done is we have fitted the two components into the back of a mixing nozzle, which is taped to the leader on some brushes. Okay, cool. So let's come over here. Thank you. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this up to the camera so you can see. So see what you can see. Okay, so this is my leader with my brushes on, and this taped underneath is the mixer. So all I'm going to do is we're going to pump a little bit of resin through here, and it's going to come out of the mixing nozzle end here into this bucket to ensure that it is the right color and consistency before actually brush cutting. Let me back up a bit. So just switch the pump on using my remote control over here, and I've just started to get some resin to come through. It's coming through nice and grey, which is what I want because it's a black and white mix, so it should be great. I switched it off. There's a little bit of pressure in there, which is just going to ease off. I'm going to put a bit of rag underneath it, lift it up to the pipe that I want to coat. So here we go. Into the pipe. Like so. Lovely. Because it's resin, I've already got it on one pair of gloves. In those. Right. So, the other thing I haven't done is put my camera on. Thank you, Steve. So, about there. So I'm just going to put my camera on so I can see what I'm doing whilst I'm actually coating. And hopefully you can see as well. Okay, so here we are. So the idea is that we push this all the way down to the end point where we want to coat from, and then we're going to drag it all back up. Yep, so we've also, we've prepped this pipe before we started. As you may be able to make out on the top of the screen there, the scratch marks from the smart cutter that went down before. And the idea is that once I start pumping resin into this, onto the brushes, I'm going to spin the brushes up and I'll get a nice bead of resin. And then my job is then to maintain that bead of resin by pulling back up at the right speed. So, thank you. Just up a little bit on the speed. That's it. That's it. That'll do. Okay. So, started to spin the brushes up, and I'm now going to start pumping resin in there. I just need to wet my brushes out first. There we go. I can see that I've got plenty of resin down there. Nice little bead. Now I'm going to come up, and as I come up, you may well be able to see on the screen a bit of Perspex pipe. Just below the Perspex pipe is a T, which has also got a bit of Perspex in it, because I wanted to show you what happens when we go past a lateral connection. Unlike lining, where you would cover the lateral connection, then have to reopen it, we're just going to come past it, and the worst we're going to do is flick a bit of resin into it. So got a nice bead of resin, and here I come. As I come up, I'm going to fill the joints of whatever pipe's in there. There's the, there we go. I'm just going to start flicking resin into that connection. Absolute worst I'm going to do. And I should be just coming up to the Perspex pipe now. There we go. Just coming through the fitting, and here we are. Now we come up nice and slowly. You can see the light from my camera, and then just below it, you can see the grey of the resin come. That's where the brushes are pushing it into all the cracks and fractures that are in this pipe. It's coming up to the coat sticker. Always maintaining a bead of resin. All I'm doing all the time. So as you can see, it's gone clear to grey. If you're wondering what I'm looking at that image, but it's just in front of me here. There we are. Should be back into the brown now. Yeah. I'm always maintaining that bead of resin and the outside of the brush. A couple of meters to go. Okay. We've got good coverage. So what we found with this system is that, or any brush coating system, is that the brushes are absolutely brilliant at pushing resin into gaps, fractures, holes, joints in pipework, fittings that have lost their solvent over the years. It'll absolutely push the brushes, because the brushes are oversized. They'll push that resin into those gaps. We found with old bits of cast iron where they're very much like a coral construction now, where it's only the corrosion on the inside, it's keeping it watertight. When you clean it and it starts to leak, you can fill that structure, that porous structure, with resin. And we've had a number of examples of old cast iron pipe where there are flecks of resin on the outside of the pipe and where it's soaked right through from the inside.
So Dan, that's a 100% solids epoxy, 1:1 mixed ratio, no VOCs.
Yeah.
Approximately how thick would each layer be and how easy is that to control?
You can pretty much, well, you can make it very thick if you want to. On average, you're looking at about 1 millimeter. If you come up, maintain a constant bead of resin on the front of those brushes and come up, you're looking at about 1 millimeter per coat. Now, should I want to put more resin on, all I do is just pull the brushes up even slower, maintain a bigger bead, and I'll get more resin onto the pipe. We've done that here, and we've also done it out on site recently on a job where we wanted to put a thicker coat onto a bit of cast iron that was running through a shop because it was leaking at the top of the pipe. And yeah, we just run it through you run it through slower, you get a thicker layer, but about 1 millimeter is what we want to be aiming for most of the time.
Thanks, Dan. Of course, it's quite a cold day in Sandhurst today. It was below freezing this morning, and now it's just above freezing outside. So, of course, it can be different temperatures depending on where you are in the world and what time of year it is. So, what would you say in terms of what temperature you really need to be keeping that resin at?
Well, really, we want it around about 23 degrees C is absolutely ideal. So if we're outside and it's very cold, so just so you're aware, if you're looking at this on the screen, I've turned the resin off. I'm just feathering out the last of the resin to come up to the top of this pipe. So yeah, if it's very cold, where we would have hoses that are on the floor, we would put blankets underneath them, or even heated blankets underneath, try and keep the hoses as warm as we possibly can, because we're trying to maintain that temperature. So we're building up some temperature within the machine itself, under the jacket and the heat jacks that we've got on the pump. But as soon as we start pulling hoses out, we're taking hoses away from that heat source. So we want to keep it as warm as we can, but about 23 to 25 degrees is absolutely ideal for us.
Excellent. So
obviously,
that's
and the other thing that
73, 75 Fahrenheit.
We would try and do, just from a yeah, whatever that is in old money, I'm not sure. Conversion.
I mean, actually, talking about the temperature, Dan, I was going to do questions at the end anyway, but David did put in the chat and ask about whether, which is a really good point, there is actually an internal resin heater in the pump as well, isn't there? So it's not just the reel and the heated blanket. There is an internal resin heater in the pump.
Absolutely, just down here, yeah. There's a heater down there, yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, but once we put that into the equipment, you know, we're trying to maintain the heat as well as we pull the hoses out. So it's site preparation is key when you're actually using the system, in order to try and retain as much of that heat as possible, because it just makes your life so much easier. Yeah.
So Dan, before we go on to asking more questions from everybody, I mean, you spoke about quite a few of the benefits earlier compared with our existing system, which is still a very great system for people who have very short runs, just want to add the pump onto their miller and get going, because of course you still need to do your prep with your miller and everything as well.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of other really good features that, you know, if people who want to go to our website and read case studies, there's some fantastic case studies on there. And one of them you'll find is from one of our partners, Greenwolves in Cyprus, who did a job recently where the pump was really useful for them because they didn't need to bring it into the building because the access was very limited, and they could just leave it there and use the remote control. So that's a really nice feature as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, if we were to do this on a larger building, for example, we don't have to take this equipment actually up onto the roof. We could, for example, take it up to just below the skylight or hatch out onto the roof, and then we can just pull the cables out because we've got 40 meters, so we can just pull the cable out, and then we haven't got to lift this machinery through the hatch up onto the roof. And because there's 40 meters, I mean, even a 3-story building, we could actually leave this equipment in the back of a truck if we can get the truck close enough to the building and pull the hoses out from the truck and then onto the roof. We can do that too, because we've got enough hose to come down the stack pipes, do what we need to do, stack pipes, rainwater pipes, whatever it is that we're coating, and then come back out, and then we don't even need to take this to the truck.
No,
On
I think
those
that's
nice
a
occasions when you
fantastic
can actually get the
feature.
truck close to where you want to.
Mm-hmm.
It's really quite brilliant, to be honest. But also we've got 40 meters on here because that's the longest length that we can go, or that we do go with a maxi. So we've got 30 odd meters on a maxi, and then we can extend it by another 10 meters. And that's essentially why we've got 40 meters on here, so we can do those kind of lengths. So yeah, it's great when you don't actually have to start construction. If you do, like I said, the wheels on here are actually quite handy, and we can get them across site should we need to. Yeah,
excellent. And there is a 10-meter or 32-foot corded remote, so there's plenty of working room there, isn't there, with that?
Yes, there is. Personally, though, I would have at least a second man on site with me, so that because I would have someone looking after the pump, so that I can concentrate on the actual coating.
Absolutely.
We find that works really well for us. Yeah.
So then we did say when we sort of publicised that we were doing this webinar that it would be about rehabilitating vertical stack pipes, because that is a sweet spot. Of course, that's not the only thing you can do with this system, but it's very much something that the system is geared towards, isn't it? Like, because you were saying, you don't have to worry about those lateral connections as there are pipes coming through, because you do seal effectively in a way you can brush a little bit past into the lateral, but you don't need access to open anything. You can just coat those vertical stack pipes without having to worry about that.
Absolutely. Unlike a lining system, so if you line down a stack, you have to open every single one of the laterals going up, and you have to also ensure that those laterals are smooth as well. If you've opened them up, if you've lined it and then you've then opened it up, you can't leave a ridge in there because it could be a snagging point and cause blockages. With this system, you can come up past the lateral, and the absolute worst it's going to do is flick a bit of resin inside or up that lateral. It doesn't actually flick it very far. The other thing is, because of the viscosity of the resin in here, when it's mixed, when it flicks into the open, doesn't leave sharp snags. So coming down doesn't snag on it because it moves out. So I've never had an issue going past lateral connections. So if you have, for example, in some buildings where you in some parts of the world, like here, where you don't have drawings for buildings, and you don't always know where these laterals are coming from. If you don't know where the lateral is, you can't access the lateral. You can't always access the lateral to reopen it if you put a liner in or a patch. And so this system is absolutely ideal because you can just come straight past it. And like I say, the worst you can do is flick some resin into that lateral. That's it. That's all it's going to do. So
and this is actually geared towards some pretty big projects as well, isn't it? Because there was a contractor in the US in summertime this year that did a really big project, actually, which was over 1,500 feet altogether, but there were 29 vertical stack pipes as part of that, and there were some horizontal lines as well. So really they were able to do everything. They could do the rainwater conductor pipes. They could do everything at the same time. So it's a really big project in quite a short space of time, effectively, because they're using this system. They had more than one on site, but it enabled them to do all of those works within a short time period.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because they could access an awful lot of it from the roof, and then if it's a very high building, you can just if you can come down and access part of the way down, and then go around to the rest bends, do the horizontal bits. I mean, we love it on a vertical pipe, whether it be rainwater, foul, whatever it is. But yeah, it works just as well on a horizontal. It's we don't suffer with slumping like an awful lot of other systems. Yes, it's perfectly fine to be using this system, vertical and horizontal, and some very long lengths as well. Hence why we have 40 odd meters on, because I think if I'm right, it's about 13 to 14 story building is about 40-ish meters, something like that. So yeah, it's not far off. I mean, they're massive buildings, absolutely massive. So, and you can do the stacked pipes all the way down to the rest bend at the bottom, and then ultimately round that rest bend and towards the connection with the sewer. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic.
So I'm not
And
surprised.
you know, when you compare it with the alternative and the huge works that you would have to do in order to rehab that in another way, for example, of course, we can have a hybrid version, so you could line and you could do some coating depending on what the situation is as well. But to take all of that out would just be a nightmare, and it would take a lot of time, wouldn't it? Be very costly. So there's some huge savings to be made in terms of time and efficiency and of course money. So that's a huge consideration, but it's still a relatively small piece of kit when you think about it as well. And once this is set up, then Dan, it's just good to go. You just cap it off and you can use it again for your next job.
Yes. So we've that's it. The guys have finished cleaning. They have cleaned the brushes, cleaned the camera. Everything's been wiped down. Any excess resin that I managed to get on the casing of the machine has all been wiped off. This is the amount basically generated from SOB, which is a tiny amount from this particular demonstration. And the hoses are back into the top of the can. So if this was a job with multiple runs, we would just move on to the next one and coat that, and then and on and on and on and on until such time as the pipe that we've just coated has had enough time to dry. We would come back and then recoat. So we're still putting multiple coats on because we want to build up the thicknesses that we get inside the pipes. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty much good to go. Or I could put the caps on, roll up the hoses, put the jacket back on, and we can pack up and go because we've coated what we needed to coat. So it's a quick and easy system to use.
That's brilliant. And so, like I said before, it's, I mean, fantastic for stack pipes, but it's not the only thing. So yourself and Andy have been involved over, the last weeks in some other projects to do with swimming pools. And then you were doing one recently, Dan, in the last couple of weeks as well. Can you tell us about that one in London?
Yeah, so we were asked to go and have a look at a job in London where they had some leaking rainwater pipes that went down through a shop. And obviously, every time it rained, the gutter above would fill, the water would come in, and it was very much well, they weren't quite sure if it was the joint at the very top or the joint in the floor. And so we were asked to go and have a look, which we did. We found the pipe was very choked up. So as part of our prep, obviously, we wanted to clean the pipe up to the inside diameter of the pipe, which we did because it was quite constricted. It was about 20% full of scale build up. So we removed all of that, got down to the hose pipe as in the original cast iron, and then what we did is we used a hybrid system. We put short lengths of liner in at the very top of the pipe to seal it between the connection with the gutter and the pipe to make sure that was okay. And then because the rest of the pipe was in pretty bad condition, we coated it from the rest bend at the bottom all the way up, round an offset, and then into the liner that we'd fitted. And it worked absolutely brilliantly. We were very impressed with the results. We managed to push resin into a couple of open joints, yeah, it was a really good job. Few issues with some water ingress whilst we were working, but we solved those, and the resin behaved brilliantly. So yeah, it was a good job. And then
Small footprint as well in terms of.
yeah, very small footprint, because we were actually the gutter that we were working on was next to a walkway where as it's London, we had tours coming through, and so only took up half the amount of space that was available, which allowed footfall to come past us either way, because it's a very small footprint. And then Andy was doing a job at a swimming pool in somewhere very glamorous, and I'll just switch off my mic while Andy talks to you about that.
Yeah, that's correct. So obviously, me being the sporty one, got the swimming pool side, didn't I? Really, out of the two of us. Very warm site, indoor swimming pool. Options were digging through lots of reinforced concrete and shutting the swimming pool site down, which was a bit of a no. It's one of those sites where it's open 24/7, 365 a year. One of the options I actually looked at was building a new swimming pool site adjacent to it and pulling down the old one afterwards. But they discovered our system, and we worked alongside some contractors on site, and we were able to get into the system and coat through sections of the pipe that were encased in the concrete. They pressure tested them afterwards as well, which was nice, and they've all passed the pressure tests. Some of that work was from on top of the pool. Some of it was down inside like caves almost. So we had the pump on the top. The guys did confined spaces down into like a chamber, and they were working down in there. Unusual site, but another one, tick in the box, job done. Customers very happy. Their swimming pool is open to the public. No loss of earnings to them. So very happy.
More importantly, it's not leaking.
And it doesn't leak. Correct.
Well, that is the important thing at the end of the day as well. And we had fantastic feedback from that, but we really did have some fantastic feedback from those works that Dan was telling us about a few weeks ago as well. The customer was incredibly happy with the work that was done, and especially with that small footprint and how contained everything was, so it wasn't disruptive to their everyday works in their everyday life, which was really nice. Especially, like Dan said, there were a lot of tours going on at the time, because in London everything's a tour, so you have, everywhere you go you have to be careful. So the fact we were able to do that in a very small footprint, in a really efficient way, and be in and out in a relatively short space of time without breaking any ground, the customer's happy, the public are happy, nothing's closed down, everyone's got the benefit from that. So there are some fantastic uses for this system. Perhaps Andy or Dan, I'm not sure whose mic's on at the moment, you want to tell us if there's anything else that you find particularly applicable to this system, and where you think that can really add the most benefit.
Well, going to the site, Dan was on about where we were on the footpath and the tools. It was a very precious site. We had no opening for making any damage to the site, getting any resin anywhere or marking anything up. So being able to move this stuff in and out easily on the rubber wheels and get it in was awesome. We did put some sheeting down, obviously, and we're very careful, had to abide by their rules, but we dropped absolutely no resin on anything at all. So if you work steadily with this kit as well and methodically, it's super clean. Things do happen. We can't deny that accidents can happen, but if you're very careful with it all and you work steadily away, so just not making a mess on the customer's site. And we've just done that demonstration probably with about 4 pairs of disposable gloves and some bits of rag and some acetone to just keep ourselves clean. So we're not mixing massive vats of resin and things like that to do the repairs, stretching liners out down footpaths while we're wetting them out, all of that kind of stuff. It is very small, very compact. I mean, typically we're using a tail lift on a small van, aren't we? Yeah. And we get our gear in and out. Sometimes we take spare equipment because you never know where it's going, but we don't use that. It is very much the miller that hopefully you've already bought, and you're going to add this pumping system to it. Or if you've already bought the smaller pumps, you might still add this to it, because you're going to use all the different tools in the box. But,
yeah.
it's it's a super special bit of kit. It's taken us some getting the system right, valves on, valves off. So when you first look at it, you think, wow. But very quickly, you get the hang of it. Yeah.
But this can really transform businesses. This can really take people into whole new avenues and opportunities for work.
Yeah, this is an area of the market that currently probably isn't even really being thought about by more than 2 or 3 contractors, particularly in the UK. So there's an open market at the minute. There's no price ceilings on anything. It's what the job is worth to the customer. So it is a little bit of a moneymaker. We can't deny that, but it's also a very good end product for them.
No, that's absolutely fantastic. And like I said before, there are some great case studies on, including at least one of those. I don't think we've quite had time to do the one that Dan just completed a few weeks ago. You can find them on our website, picotegroup.com, and Steph did very kindly drop a link into that as well, because this is happening all over the world. So we've got some great case studies from the US, we've got case studies from Germany and other European cities. So it's great to go on there and just see the types of work that people are doing with this. Now, we have had a few questions coming through, which is great. You can put your questions into the chat or the Q&A and we'll pick them up and ask the guys. So David's asking about relative humidity. So I guess he wants to know the conditions inside the pipe when you're coating.
We're going to say the drier the better. There's no doubt in that at all. It's got to be as dry as we can get the pipe. Puddles of water, definite no-no. But if we can get that pipe warm and dry, we're going to have a better coating experience. If it's just some moisture like we had on that site, we did have some water ingress at various points, but it was damp, but no puddles, because again we were working in the verticals, so that kind of helped us a bit. But if you've got puddles of water, you've got to purge those out, whether that's a plunger, a back, or something, to getting that water out. It's going to make your whole experience better. So definitely drier the better.
And is there a way that you can facilitate that, Andy?
We would use rods and plungers to push puddles out, gloves on the rods and plungers. There's all sorts of drainage tricks. We use the Picote blower. We have used wet and dry vacuum cleaners, or it could be a 26-ton jet vac to get the water out, whatever you've got that's available to you. We were also using, again, it was a pretty a hybrid. We were using a blower to warm and dry the pipes. We also dropped our smart heat, the heated cable we use on our lining systems, into the pipes to kind of just pre-dry them. Also give them a little bit of warmth, because that extra bit of warmth on those pipes probably gave us another 10 minutes off the curing time. So we just wanted to crack on and get the job done and get it sorted. So all the little tricks we've got, and a lot of that stuff is all part of the training anyway. We get all those hints and tips, and people come in for training, or if we're working alongside a contractor, showing them this gear and kind of handing it over.
Well, those are all really good points, Andy. And what you said there about the Picote heater to help prep the pipe once you've cleaned it before you start, just to get it as dry as you can. But then you can also use that to accelerate the curing process as well. So everything's very multi-purpose at Picote. There's lots of different uses for everything. And David's also asking, actually, it's a good point, what's the maximum pipe size that can be coated? Well, the maximum is 300 mil or 12 inch. But we didn't really speak too much about the smaller sizes. So we do actually do from 1.25 inch or 32 mil up to 12 inch or 300 mil. But there is a slightly different system to be used for the 1.25 inch and 2 inch pipe. Isn't that right?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways in dealing with it. We've got some slightly smaller hoses that will clip onto the end of the pump, so we can do those smaller diameters. Those smaller diameters tend to be shorter lengths as well, don't they? So sometimes we can use the smaller ball pipe on the end of the pump with the static mixer on the end. Sometimes we're going to really struggle. Maybe the bends are in there, so we actually just extend the hose off of the static mixer. Sadly, then we do sacrifice a little bit of pipe. But on an apartment project, we might have 20, 30 meters of 100 mil 4-inch pipe, and we might have, I don't know, 3-4 meters of 32 or 40 mil pipe to worry about. So it's not a lot of pipe we're going to waste. Again, we can be clever. If we've got those 2 pipes prepped up, we can use that same bit of hose for the 2 jobs, as long as the time between the coating isn't too long. So we can reduce our wastage quite a lot on those as well. It's just slightly different ways of doing the job. Like all of these jobs, you just have to think outside the box sometimes. But we've got ways and means of doing all these ways.
So that small hose package for the 1.25 to 2 inch, that's actually maximum of 15 meters or 50 feet. So it is very much for those smaller lines. But like Dan said earlier, then for the main system, really from 3 inch up to 12 inch, then you're using the up to 40 meters, wasn't it, you said?
Those guys lucky enough to have the 2 systems, if they've got like a mini pump or a maxi pump, might well have 1 crew doing the small bore stuff with the original pump systems, and they might have a second crew on site using this system. So again, they're cracking through the work on site and getting it all done as well.
Even better. That's what we like. We like to hear that. Have many pumps. Customer. Have all the Picote pumps.
Yeah, buy it all. At least one of each.
Absolutely. Does anyone have any other questions for our team while you've got them? What I will say is, of course, as always, if you do think of anything afterwards, or you'd rather just have a little chat with one of our team, or you might have a project you're thinking about, or you want to know more about the actual equipment itself, for example, how heavy it is, or things like that, then of course you can reach out to any of our team at any time. And Steph, again, very kindly has preempted this. She knows me really well, and she's put that information in the chat for you right now. So you can just look up the contact and support page on our website. Everyone is there. Andy's there, Dan's there, Steph is there, I'm there, everyone's there. And you can please feel free to reach out to any of us. All our contact details are on there, our email and phone numbers and all of that as well. So don't be shy. That's what we're here for. We love to get the questions and to talk more about Picote. And especially Dan and Andy, when you're talking to contractors about projects that they're thinking about, or they might be scoping out for a client, you're more than happy to help them figure out what it is that they need and how to do the job in an efficient manner using our equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting for us, isn't it, to find out where people want to use this, thinking through their problems with them. Hopefully, I guess the solution. And we work in many different ways, don't we? We'll just advise you with the project, point you in the right direction. Or we work alongside, and that can be right from the very I've got an idea, I've got a customer with a pipe I think I can fix with this, right through to the post-work survey almost, can't it? In many different guises, whether it's us doing the project or working alongside that contractor, even training that contractor while we're alongside them. So that, we've got various ways to get you to your end goal. Ultimately, it means this bit of kit becomes yours, and you're going to use it more and more, and hopefully want a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth and a sixth, maybe,
Yeah, and actually that is what has been happening with some contractors as well, when they start to get going and start to find the market for this, and it is something that can really help scale a business up as well, which is wonderful to see, and it's amazing to be part of. But that technical support is there at every level from our team. And like Andy said, whether that's a technical training at any of our training centres, so we've got the training centre in the UK in Sandhurst, which is around about 40 minutes from Heathrow for anyone maybe in Europe that wants to pop over. Of course, we have our training centre in Finland as well, which is about 45 minutes from Helsinki Airport. And we've got our training centre in Phoenix in Arizona. So we're pretty well spread out. At the same time, of course, it's possible to hire a trainer to go to you and your team. And like Andy said, it's also possible to hire that support. So maybe you want to do the training and also want, a day on site with the guys or a couple of days, just so you get your confidence up with using it, just in case there's any little issues that you want to resolve live on site. Or, of course, you can subcontract Picote to work with you in that way as well, if you really just want us to help you with the entire project. So there are a lot of different ways that you can get involved. However, we also have a lot of great information as a starting point, not only on our website, picotegroup.com, but on Picote Institute. So picoteinstitute.com, we have some amazing information and resources on there. We've got a lot of free training courses on there. We have videos on there, tech tips. It's also a hotline to our technical team as well. So there are a lot of fantastic resources on picoteinstitute.com, completely free. All you have to do is register to get your login details, and then you can log in and take advantage of all of those resources, including, of course, all our operating manuals are on there and all the other technical resources you need as well. So don't think we've got any other questions for you, right? I think that means you did a really good job, guys.
Awesome. I've thought of two things when you were saying about the 3 training schools. We've also got a whole wealth of knowledge, because we've got our services guys using this gear. We've got the teams in Finland and the US using this stuff. So it's not just me and Dan, I'm glad to say, but there is an awful lot of brain power. I don't think it's just us to back you up. And also for these guys, if this isn't their territory, most of us, we came from a horizontal pipe background, really, underground pipe, and kind of find our way into this. So we get it. They're going to perhaps need a bit of hand holding, a bit of guidance. Not that we're counsellors by any means, but we could always be that person to talk through the project, where they're thinking, could I even do this? Because I really believe there is a massive market out there. If you, on your drive home tonight, start looking for buildings of more than 2 stories high, it's amazing how many there are actually out there across the world. So,
and we do get a lot of inquiries about high-rise buildings, because everyone has the same problems. Everyone has the same problems inside buildings, and very often, a lot of buildings that were, for example, built in the 60s and 70s, now they start to have the problems with their pipework as well. So there's a lot of opportunity there for everyone. And you're absolutely right. We've got a fantastic team around the world that are more than happy to pick up the phone and help you. And sometimes it's because you've already worked on projects, so you might be able to help in that way too, because, okay, this is something we did 6 months ago with another contractor, and you can help in that way. Or if it's something that hasn't been done before, then you can help brainstorm and figure it out, maybe even work with other parts of our team, like our R&D team, just to make sure that we can get everything right for everybody. And that's something we're more than happy to do as well. We love a problem at Picote, don't we? We love to help. We love a challenge. We do love a challenge.
Challenge is a better word than problem.
Yeah, we love a challenge at Picote. Well, you love a challenge. I don't. I'd rather not have the challenges. You can have the challenges.
We're your problems. The customers have the challenges.
But yeah, we're more than happy. So anytime, pick up the phone. And also, if you think, well, I'm not near Phoenix, I'm not near, UK, I'm not near Finland, not a problem. We also do virtual calls and virtual trainings. That's not a problem whatsoever. And you can also have a certified training in that way. Getting the certified training does enable you to offer warranty on the resin that you use. So it is something I would suggest, if you are using the Picote coating system, that's something that you do, which is a really nice sort of added advantage, and something that the end user, that the end customer is very happy to have as well. So thank you. I'd like to say thank you very much to Dan and to Andy for taking us through the Picote coating system. I'd like to thank Steve on the other side of the camera, and all of our team. And Richard is there as well. And we've got Steph, like I say, she's been squirreling away, adding all this interesting information into the chat for you. This webinar has been recorded. We'll be more than happy to send that out to everyone once everything's been finalised, and Steph will put it up on YouTube and make sure you have access to it as well, which is always really important. Fear not, we will have more webinars. the next one will be from our Finland Training Centre in Porvoo. So that's going to be on the Wednesday, the 18th of December. So it's a nice early Christmas present. And that's going to be on Picote point repair and reinstatement. Yes, we do lining too. And we're more than happy to share that expertise too. So if you would like to join us, that will be at the same time, which is 3 o'clock GMT. And I don't know what that is anywhere else. I'm going to apologise, but it's 3 o'clock in the UK that we started, and that's how we're going to do it. Steph will send out, again, information about that. You'll be able to register for it in the next week or so. And I would be delighted if you could join us and join our team in Finland as well for that. But for now, I would like to just thank everyone for their attention. And again, once more before we go, you please use the Institute, please use picotegroup.com, and please feel free to reach out at any time to any of our team. Okay, thank you very much and have a lovely day. Thanks.